friends, followers, and fellow flight simmers. Welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator and another tutorial. This was requested after I published my quick review of the PMDG 737-800, and in this tutorial we will be taking a look at the cold and dark startup procedure all the way to getting ready for pushback and engine start, or we'll do that and leave at the taxi checklist. Currently we are parked at Ankara Esenboğa Airport in Turkey. The capital of Turkey is Ankara. And our destination is Adıyaman Airport at the southeastern side of Turkey. We'll jump into the cockpit here in a little bit and start discussing what we need to do to get our aircraft ready for departure. Without further ado, let's jump into the cockpit and start talking about what we need to do. Here we are in the cockpit of 737-800. We have GSX loaded. You may use it, you may not use it. In this tutorial, I will just use it to connect the jetway, and that'll be it. You can also use PMDG's menu to do it. Let's connect the jetway using GSX, and I'll explain what we need to do. It's usually Çelebi running the airport in Turkey, so we will select the handling. Well, it's just impatient, I guess. It's gonna use Turkish ground services, which is fine. The jetway is being connected right now. And let's talk about a couple things here. By the way, the textures you see here are a little bit wear and tear textures that I found on flightsim.to. So you might ask why my aircraft is looking different. That's why. But the only complaint I have is the flight recorder panel is missing the texture, so that is a little bit interesting to see. But I don't want to start the flight again, so we will leave it this. First things first, we need to go down to the FMC and we need to look at the FS actions and ground services. So if this doesn't come turned on, I mean by the FMC, if you are using a cold and dark setup from PMDG, which I changed mine and did a couple more things to make it a little bit close to how this aircraft is left in parking. But holding the menu button will turn the FMC on even the aircraft is not powered on. So you may want to use it to set up your own cold and dark if you are interested in doing that. So hold the menu button until the FMC turns on, and then you will be able to see these menus and request your ground services. First thing, we'll request the GPU card and connect it to the aircraft, which we will need shortly. You can also run your APU, but while we are at this stand, let's take advantage of the GPU. From here, you can load your aircraft in two ways even before thinking about powering the aircraft up. First, the fuel and payload. You can quickly load your fuel using this menu, and the payload using this menu, how many passengers you will take, how much cargo you will be carrying, etc. If you want to do it a little bit more realistic and use real-time loading, you can go to ground services and put your target fueling amount. In this case, we will need 5.5 tons of block fuel, so 5,500. And you can request the fuel truck, which we will arrive, and then you can start fueling right that. Same is true for the passengers. If you want to do real-time boarding, we will be carrying 135 passengers today. So you can set that, and you can use the boarding start when the aircraft is ready for boarding. In this tutorial, we will not do it this way. We'll do it the other way around, but I'm just sharing the options. Same goes for cargo. You can set your payload and the cargo amounts in the aft and forward cargo compartments. In today's flight, our OFP shows 3.4 tons of cargo. What we'll do is we will take 1400 to do forward cargo compartment and 2000 to the aft for balancing the center of gravity of the aircraft. And you can request the loaders and start loading the aircraft with your cargo. So that's the ground operations and what you can do. You either want to do it, if you want to get up in the air very fast, you can do it from the payload and fuel menu. If you want to take it a little bit more realistic, as you see, the loaders are connecting, fuel truck is here, and we can start fueling. So let's start fueling for now until we configure everything. I think we will be able to finish this because we don't need too much. So the aircraft started refueling. So now we need to go through the electrical power up procedure. So I'll be using a printed checklist. I'll put a link to the checklist that I use in the description field of the video if you are interested in getting it for yourself and printing and using. I like to have something printed instead of using a digital copy of a checklist. That makes things a little bit easier for me. To start with the electrical power up procedure, we need to go to the overhead panel. You can do it either by Control-6, or you can set up a custom view like I did, which makes it a little bit interesting. It feels like you are looking to the overhead as the pilot. We'll close the guard for the battery, and we'll close the standby power. And from here, we ensure a couple things. Alternate flaps is guarded. This red guard is alternate flaps. We check that. Electrical fuel pumps are off. We check that as well. Wipers are in the park position. We check that too. And then we are seeing 3 green lights for the landing gear here and both at the overhead panel up here. When these are verified, we can safely introduce ground power to the aircraft. To do that, put the ground power on bus, and we will see the aircraft systems coming to life. Alright, at this point, if you don't decide to use the ground power, what you need to do is to start the APU, but then before that you need to run the fire tests to start the APU. That's following the real life procedures. We can put the position lights to steady. That's all the lighting we need to worry about at this point. If it's dark, you can put the logo light on as well, and cabin lights as required. So those are the main panel brightness. And over here at the pilot side, background brightness and glare shield floodlight. Same for the co-pilot, and then the pedestal will have a panel brightness switch down below here, and we have a floodlight switch next to it as well. So those are checked. Now we'll do our flows from top to bottom, left to right, to complete the overhead, and then we will jump to the MCP, and then from MCP to the pedestal to finish up the startup procedure. We'll go to the top, and again, you may at this point change your mind and run the tests if you want to, and the view is Control-3, Control-4, and you need to get a little bit closer. And what you need to do here is first we run the fault in-op test. Fault in-op detection lights should be illuminated, and the switch will turn to the normal position, and we should also see overhead detection on the master caution. Next up is the fire test. It will display, and also we should be able to cancel the bell. I was too slow for that, so let's do it again. We should check the bell cutout. Yep, That works too. And the one thing I'd like to mention here is the wheel well fire detection will not work if you don't have AC power. So you need to be either using GPU or APU for this to work. We check the squibs or fire extinguishers, left and right. 3 green lights, we're good on that. And we can also go a little bit down and check the cargo fire test, which is working. So after these are done, we'll go to the overhead and turn our IRS switches to nav. I'm using my controller for that. So first to align, the on DC lights will illuminate, and then align will show up, and then we will switch them to the nav position when we see the align lights. It will take a second. While we are here, we can do the flaps test. It is working. There we go. Yaw damper comes on. And emergency exit lights will come to there. We'll check the crossfeed valve. Bright blue dim, bright blue off. We also verify that the navigation panel has all the switches in the normal position and the source is at auto. These lights should be dim blue for the engine fuel lives. Standby power, again check the guards. Nothing to do here. In the middle, we'll arm the emergency exit lights. If we are done with refueling, we can turn the seat belt signs on, so we can go ahead and check that first. Let's see. Fueling is done, so we can release the fuel truck and turn the passenger signs on and check the attend button. We'll follow. At this point, we can turn the window heat switches to on. Probe heat will stay off until we are ready to taxi. Electrical hydraulic pumps can come on at this point for the exterior walk around, or you can keep them off until you are ready to start your engines. I usually leave them off until I start the engines, and this might not align with the real life procedure because one of the pilots will be doing an exterior walk and you have to have the pumps on to detect any hydraulic leaks. If the pumps were off, you will not probably going to be able to spot the leaks. Pressurization panel, nothing here, but we need to verify a couple things. First, the elevation or altitude is displaying the field elevation at the airport, and the cabin climb is showing 0. PAX, we are not going to be able to do that without the APU, but we'll turn the cockpit voice recorder to on, and we'll leave the air conditioning and air bleed system off for now. We'll come back to the pressurization panel when we set our flight plan, and that is pretty much it for the overhead. From here, we'll go down to the FMC and start programming our flight. We'll verify the model number and the engine rating. Navigation database is active and checked and valid. And we'll go to the Pos Init page. We are at Lima Tango Alpha Charlie. We are parked at stand or gate 106. We'll move. You can leave these empty. This is just giving you the GPS coordinates of those you entered. And what we do is we select the actual GPS coordinate from the next page and copy it. This is required to align the IRS. If you don't enter this, your alignment will not start, or it will start but will be not finalized. From here, we'll go to the route page. Over here, you can do two things. You can download a PMDG formatted flight plan and use the simulated uplink to request your flight plan, or you can enter it manually, which is what we will be doing for today. So again, Lima Tango Alpha Charlie, that's our departure. Our destination is Lima Tango Charlie Papa. That's entered. Our flight number for today is TK Tango Kilo 2216. We are expecting runway 03 right as our departure runway. And we'll go to the departure and arrival page after this to select our departure. From runway 3 right, we are expecting Gobit 1 Tango departure with no transition. We'll go to the route, next page, and we will start entering our waypoints. We'll take an airway, Uniform Golf 8, after Gobit. That will take us to GEM. You can enter Golf Echo Mic and plug it in here, or you can enter the next airway and the FMC should bring the correct intersection waypoint to the right side. Again, reminder, airways go to the left side of the FMC, waypoints go to the right side. Our next airway is Uniform Whiskey 73, and when we enter we will see Golf Echo Mic displayed here, like so. Next airway, Uniform Whiskey 103. That will take us to Echo Romeo Hotel VOR. That's correct. And from here we will exit the airway at Sansu, Sierra Oscar November Sierra Uniform. And from there our arrival starts. We are expecting runway 04. We will be doing an ILS Zulu to runway 04 via the Sansu 1 Romeo arrival. We don't have any transitions, so that's our routing. We go to the route page, we activate this. Before executing, we'll go up here, change it to the plan mode, increase the range if you like. I like to keep it at 20 miles. And we'll get a little bit closer and we'll check our routing. We'll go to the legs page, and at this point we will clear any discontinuities that we might have before executing our route. First waypoint, second, we have a restriction of 13,000 or below. That will become handy when we are programming our MCP, if we are not using ATC today, which we will not. Gobit, Martu, GEM, Uribo, Echo Romeo Hotel, Take Me, Sansu, Charlie Papa 563, and then into the runway. So the routing looks okay. In real life, oh, there is a discontinuity here, so the aircraft will need vectoring between these two waypoints, but what we can do is we can select and paste on top of it, and it should fix the routing. Now we can execute our flight plan routing, and there is something weird going on here. So EFTA, this doesn't belong here. This needs to go, and this is why we check the routing. So we'll delete Octab, execute this, that should fix it. We will put this here, execute this, and then after Foxtrot India 04 Zulu, let me check the chart real quick for our arrival. I already have the flight plan there, or our approach rather, not arrival. And we'll verify that waypoint and the routing. Look into the chart. So yeah, I do not see that waypoint. We should be fine like this. And the 4000 checks at 5.8 DME, which is final, or Foxtrot India 04. That checks too. That's final approach course 044, also displayed on the chart. And looks like our approach is programmed properly, and we should be fine here. So we go back to the legs page, close the charts for now, and we'll go back to the map page, and our IRS is already aligned. So at this point, we programmed our flight. If you didn't execute, if you are flying online on MATSIM or using ATC, I recommend not to execute and get your clearance first. Listen to the 80s for pressure and altimeter and other information, but we will just stick to no ATC today. So I will cheat a little bit and press the B key to set the pressure. Looks like we are on the correct barometric pressure, 1013. And we need to load the aircraft to do our performance calculation. So as I said, we are not going to use real-time boarding. That's going to take too much time. We can do that by starting the boarding, but we will not do that. Although we can request the cards and start the cargo load or loading the cargo, or we can completely ignore and go to the payload, enter our passenger count, which I said 135 passengers on board. Oops, 135 to economy. That's loaded now. And that 12 is, I believe, the flight crew, so you might have to add that on top of 135 for proper takeoff weight calculation. Cargo today looks like it was 3.4 tons. I'm using kilograms, by the way, metric units. So 3.4 will take 1400 to the front and 2000 to the aft cargo compartment, and that's all the loading we need to do. So this is giving us a zero fuel weight of 58.3 tons, and I'm seeing 57.2 in SimBrief, and the difference is, I believe, from coming from this 12 over here. So if I take away 12 from the passenger count, that will bring us down to 123. So if I plug in 123 here with 12 person on the crew, that is giving us 57.3, which is 57.2 in SimBrief. That checks out. So we'll use this. So that's our payload completed. So now we can release the loaders and everything because we loaded everything. We will keep the ground power and we'll go to the performance calculation. Zero fuel weight, 57.3. You can type it in from the payload sheet or payload page here, or you can, oops, wrong button, sorry, or you can press the zero fuel weight and it will fill it up for you at the scratch pad, and you can paste it. Our resource for today's flight, according to our operational flight plan, is 2.07. We will round it up to 2.1. Cost index is 23. And very important, if you don't enter a cost index, you might not be able to activate VNav because the aircraft doesn't know what to do. So remember this. Our flight level is flight level 370 for today's flight. For average wind or cruise wind, we'll take the average wind on our operational flight plan, or you can choose to go and take the top of climb wind from SimBrief. I will use the average wind. That's 233 at 43 knots. And I'll check the outside air temperature at our flight plan routing to make sure we have the correct information there. So outside air temperature at top of climb is showing minus 44 degrees, so we will correct that to minus 44. And the transition altitude, we can check the chart for that. If we pull our SID, that should have the transition altitude information. That's 10,000 for Turkey, for most of the country, so we'll plug in 10,000 to the transition altitude. And we need to execute this while we are on this page, because again, we won't be able to activate our VNav if this is not executed. We can also enter the planned fuel versus what we have in the tanks. That's what we have, and we'll execute this. From here, we'll go to the M1 limit, and we need to select our performance calculation. Unfortunately, right now, there is no performance calculator that I could find for 737-800. We will just do some guesswork. But I believe there is one that's subscription based if you like to use it. One of the YouTubers, 737NG driver, mentioned that in one of his tutorials, but I don't think I should be paying for its performance calculator that I will be using every once in a while. So what we'll do is we will derate the engines to 22K and enter a outside temperature of 50 degrees. We can even go 55. What I'm trying to get here is to get close to 86%. We can also try 60 and derate to 22K. That's okay. We don't have the bleed air running. This will drop down a little bit more, but I am happy with this performance calculation. Before calculating the takeoff speeds, we'll just, next up, put the flaps. CG can be populated by pressing the CG button and pasting it here, and this will give us the V speeds of 137 V1, 138 V rotate, and 143 V2. We'll make a note of our V2 and we'll plug that into our MCP for our initial speed. So at this point, our performance calculations are done. We are good on everything, and we can go ahead and start the APU and do the rest of the checks. So I'll grab my checklist. We'll turn the aft fuel pump on. This will feed the APU, and we will start the APU from here. We'll monitor the EGT, and when APU is available, we'll put the APU on bus and disconnect the ground power. Let's wait until the APU is up and running, but while we are here, we can set our cruising altitude of 37,000 feet to our pressurization panel, and we'll check the landing elevation of the destination airport. It's on the approach chart. At the top we will see airport elevation 2214. We'll round it up to 2250 and set it for our pressurization panel. That all checks. We're good on that. APU is almost ready. Just a little bit more, waiting for the needle to come. There we go. We have the APU available. We'll put the APU on bus. Now APU is on the bus. We have to wait at least 1 minute after start to turn the bleed system on. But in the meantime, we can go and release the ground power. So let's go back to ground services. And you can do it two ways. You can hold the brakes and set your parking brake before releasing the chocks, and removing the chocks will also disconnect the ground power. Or you can leave the chocks in place and just release the ground power and remove the chocks when you are ready to push back. I'd like to do it like this and remove the chocks so that everything is removed and I'm ready for pushback. Alright, at this point, if you are using an ATC or online traffic network, it is a good idea to check that the transponder is at standby and you set your squawk code. Our runway, takeoff runway, let's go to the chart one more time and pull the charts for the airport. If I can click. So our departure runway, according to our flight plan, is runway 03 right, and runway heading is 032, as you see here on the chart. It's a little bit tiny, but it's 032, so we'll set that on the heading bug. That's set. And we can also check one more thing here. Go to our chart for our departure, and looks like we have a VOR here. Chubuk VOR 114.3. We'll set that to our nav radio. 114.3 is set on nav 1, and we can use that as a secondary nav aid. This is an RNAV departure, so this is just a countermeasure for our departure. So which means we will require GPS to fly this departure. We won't be able to fly it with radio navigation because there are no distances given for this VOR station. But we'll keep that there for situational awareness. We'll also tune 032 to our course as well, because we don't have anything else to set here. And at this point we can turn the flight directors on, and the pressure is set. So we are done with the MCP for now, except the initial climb. So if you are using ATC, you'll get an initial climb. If you are doing it like I do and with no ATC, then we'll check the departure chart and set the first restriction we have as our initial climb, which is flight level 130 or below. So that means we can climb up to 13,000, and we will climb further when we pass this waypoint here, which we should be able to meet this very easily. So that's all set. We'll check the yaw damper is on. Yes. Window heat on. Flight altitude and landing altitude on our pressurization system is set. Flight directors are on and verified that the pilot side is master. LNAV, VNAV, we don't worry about that right now. Minimums, so you can use the barometric minimum to set your engine out procedure altitude. This is diving a little bit deep into what we do here, but I am using a website provided to the community by Blackbox711. He is also a YouTuber, and he has a website that gives you the engine out procedure altitudes for most airports around the world, but I'm not able to find one for this, so we will just leave it alone. If we were using a performance calculator, they usually give you that information as well, and you use your barometric minimums to set your engine out procedure altitude, whatever it is, to here. We will just guesstimate and say it is 1378. Just guessing. There is no calculation here that I'm making, so don't take this as a real number, but that's it. While we have the APU power running for more than a minute now, we can turn the APU bleed to on and pegs to auto and recirculation fans to auto. At this point, we'll see the temperature, duct pressure, and duct temperature changing immediately. You can set the temperatures to your liking. I usually don't touch them. It pretty much maintains a good temperature in the cockpit, in the cabin. And from there, let's just continue with the checklist. Altimeters are set, minimums are set. Auto brakes can come to RTO, or you can do it while you are pushing back or getting ready to taxi. COM radios are set, and we have to check the doors. This is our doors lights, all extinguished, which means the doors are set. And the jetway should be still connected, so we need to release the jetway to start our pushback. There, what was that master caution? Let's see. That's the electrical and fuel, which is okay. And we'll just tell GSX to operate the jetways. Jetway should be disconnecting now. There it goes. And we can tell them to prepare the aircraft for pushback. And this will come through my speakers because I haven't changed the audio source. The cockpit communication we won't be able to hear using the headphones, and if I change it now it will restart the GSX, so let's not do that. So hopefully you will hear it from the speakers.
Hello, Captain.
The audio will look a little bit different, but yeah. So they are ready. He is coming to insert the bypass pin. Clear the master caution right now. And while we are going to get pushed back, we'll just put our fuel pumps to on.
Checks completed. Bypass pins inserted.
He inserted the bypass pin. We'll turn the anti-collision light to on. And when they are ready, we'll turn the packs off for engine start. All hydraulic pumps are on at this point. On the auto throttle. Set. Fuel pumps on. Electric hydraulic pumps on. Anti-collision light on. Parking brake is set. Ground equipment is removed. Engine area is clear. So I think he's asking us to release the parking brake, so we'll do that. Oops, no, it's not. I wasn't listening to the ground crew. So he's connecting. Alright, our pushback routing, so that's what it is asking us. Let's check the airport chart one more time. We are departing from runway 030 right. So we are parked here, so that means nose to the right, tail to the left, pushback.
Release parking brakes, please.
Alright, they are asking us to release the parking brakes. Parking brakes
Commencing
released.
push. All engines clear. Start
All
at
engines clear, we can start. So we'll turn the packs off. Oh, not those are recirculation fans. Packs off. And we'll verify the fuel pumps are on. And we'll start with the right engine. Put to the ground position. We started to see N2. Oil pressure is increasing. And at about 25% N2, we will introduce fuel using the fuel cutoff valves. It's 25, introduce fuel. And now we are looking for EGT, fuel flow, and N1 rotation. That's the sign of a good engine start. We will wait for the stars valve to close, and while we are doing this, we should also check the engine valves when we are starting engine number 2 and the spare valve. They should turn to bright and then extinguish while the starter is operating. So starting the second engine or left engine, put it to the ground, and we will monitor the same things. N2 rotation, oil pressure increasing, and when we put the cutoff valve, I'm gonna do it from my controller. That's reaching 25%, and just observe here. Alright, bright, and then extinguish. Alright, we are looking for EGT, fuel flow, and M1 rotation. So that's the sign of a good engine start. I think they are done with the pushback, or I'm not sure where he pushed us. This is part of the problems with GSX. But let's set the parking brakes
Waiting your confirmation
and ask them to stop the pushback here, because he's not gonna do it. Confirm good engine start.
We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Now they are going to disconnect. Alright, We have 2 good engine starts. Our engines are running. We'll put the generators on bus. We'll put the probe heat on. Wing anti-ice is not required. Engine anti-ice not required. Packs to auto. Isolation valve is already at auto. It's the middle one here. Isolation valve auto. APU bleed off. APU is now off. Engine start switches to continuous.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
Flaps. We'll set our flaps for takeoff.
Right is clear.
Flaps set. Elevator trim. We'll check our trim setting. Going to M1 limit page and takeoff. It's asking us to verify the V speeds because now we have the bleed air running. So let's go to performance. M1 limits, takeoff speeds. We have a trim of 5.13 and we'll verify the speed. So trim is, we'll set the trim now to 5.13-ish, where we think it is. So the pushback operation is completely done. Okay, that's good enough for me. Trim is set. Flight controls, we'll check our flight controls to make sure they are free and correct. So full forward, full back, full left, full right, right rudder, center, left rudder, center. Flight controls are checked and free. Recall, checked. Lower display unit, now we can blank the lower DU. Taxi lights on. Runway turn off lights as required. You can turn them on if you like, or you can leave it off. If it's nighttime, it is a good idea to turn them off. But now, at this point, we are ready to taxi, and we can ask for takeoff taxi clearance if we are using ATC. If we are not using ATC, oh, by the way, the step trim, you need to turn them on and guard it. I forgot to do it when I was going through the pedestal, so please remember that when we are setting the radios, transponder and everything. Transponder goes to TA altitude reporting off during taxi, and then TA RA prior to takeoff. We'll select the COM radios, PA system and speaker. And that is pretty much it, guys. From here it is taxiing to the runway and taking off. So I will leave it here. If you are interested in hearing the rest of the checks to taxi, takeoff, after takeoff, cruise, etc., just leave me a comment and I can record a part 2 to discuss those with you. But for today's tutorial we will leave it here. I'll do a final check to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Looks like I have not. We'll put Gen 1 on. Oh, forgot to turn the cabin, and these are usually on for you. This is a different cold and dark setup that I'm using, so you don't have to touch here, and I think it's a good idea to not to touch, because as you see I forgot to do this. But that is pretty much it for from cold and dark to taxi ready. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving the video a like, and if you are not a channel subscriber and stumbled upon this video, please consider subscribing to the channel by taking a couple seconds, hitting the subscribe button and turning on the notifications to get notified for future videos. This actually helps a lot to the channel and also helps with the YouTube algorithm to make this video reach to the other flight sim enthusiasts. Alright guys, thanks for watching the video today, and I will be seeing you in the next one.